Welcome back to Directly Current. I'm your host, Max Patten, and this week in EVs, I'm speaking with Libby Bittman, who is in charge of EVs and business development for EVs at WEX, which is a fuel card company. They are really important for businesses and their drivers right now in the world of trucking and fleets. And as we electrify that industry, they also want to be using something easy like a fuel card instead of juggling 10 apps on their phone. Libby also has a venerable career from places like ChargePoint, ChargeLab, and Tesla. She lives the EV lifestyle herself, with her husband driving an F-150 Lightning, and she having an electric motorcycle that she loves. So this is a fun episode. We're going to dig into the EV lifestyle, as well as, of course, all of the important work she is doing at WEX. I'll let her take it away.
Hi, Max. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so first off, for our listeners, can you give us a little idea of what WEX does, and specifically just a little intro world to EV fleet life in general?
WEX is a provider of fleet-based solutions, mostly known for payment solutions, payment-oriented solutions. We only work with commercial fleet customers, and we have an EV division, which I am super proud to be on. So right now, we have an on-route product, which helps fleets find public access to charging. We also have a take-home fleet product, which allows take-home fleets to charge at home and to submit their expenses for reimbursement. We recently launched a depot/private site product as well.
Nice. And just to get an idea of what that looks like for a consumer, they're on an EV road trip or on a longer highway stop, and they're going to have a menu of EV apps, like a folder on their phone. I think anyone who has an EV understands this, but in the retail world or in the world of commercial driving, you're going to have something like a fleet card. And can you explain how that kind of works?
Yeah, absolutely. So WEX really wanted to identify the issues that were plaguing our fleet drivers and help make driving electric less of a headache, because as a consumer, you do deal with a lot of the apps and a lot of the different RFIDs. The great thing about the WEX on-route experience is that it just gives you one way to pay. You have one app or an RFID if you so choose, depending upon what your fleet manager is, what they're using. And it allows you to access most of the public charging in the United States, which is really nice, and pay there too, instead of using a bunch of different apps or a bunch of different RFIDs.
Yeah, no, that's the dream. And of course, I'm sure, a organizational issue getting everyone on board for that. But that's where it helps to have somewhat of an aggregator or a solution like WEX, because otherwise it's just inconvenient. I remember even just reimbursing for charging at Electrify America versus ChargePoint, and they all work more or less similar, but in bespoke ways. And so I feel like I don't know, it makes everyone's lives a little bit easier when it's just one thing to go through.
Yeah, completely agree. And the one thing that WEX noticed was that there was a commercial experience missing from the market. So that is what WEX is focused on, is providing a solely commercial experience for EV fleets.
Yeah, and just to help me understand here, I know obviously commercial EVs, they've got some downsides, some upsides. Just off the bat, I know one of the big downsides is big, heavy batteries that are more expensive up front. And yet at the same time, we've had people from the medium duty space on the podcast that there's much lower total cost of ownership in the long term, even without subsidies. So what are some of the trends you notice from the fleet customers, from some of WEX's clients, with why they adopt EVs?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing the highest adoption in light duty, for sure. Reason being is because we've truly reached price parity on that end. And for the light duty and last mile, it makes the most sense. For medium duty, we're still seeing adoption, but things are shifting as well as in heavy duty as well.
Yep.
But investment continues to grow in all sectors. So it's not like we're seeing anything go away. We do expect things to potentially shift or maybe even slow down a little bit this year due to the current administration. We have yet to really see that.
I know the heavy duty space, the Advanced Clean Trucks, California Clean Air Act waiver, that's in the courts right now. So we'll see what becomes of that. But it seems like especially, in medium and heavy duty space, to the extent that companies want to do EV fleets, that's going to be more of a voluntary forward looking thing as opposed to something that's regulatorily encouraged, let's just say, as it was looking like a few years ago.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The thing that I do want to acknowledge is that it is so unfortunate that electric vehicles have become so politicized, because it's a mode of transportation, right?
Yeah.
It's There's no reason why a mode of transportation needs to be political. And I think that the product itself speaks for itself, that when fleet managers experience ride and drives, we have much higher instances of adoption because that's just once you experience it, it's a no-brainer. There's so many things that people don't think about when they think about what a fleet driver goes through. And I think the noise pollution is a big one. It really helps from a health aspect. So not just from the fumes from the gasoline, but the noise is a big one.
Yeah, no, that's a great point there. It's the quality of life because you're right. I think the EV discourse, and we always bang on about this at the American EV Jobs Alliance. So for so long, has been the environmental, right, which is very
Yeah.
politically coded in the U.S. And yet it really goes beyond that because I've spoken to people driving the Rivian EDVs and the Amazon fleet and other customers. And it's one thing, right, when it's your personal vehicle. And I understand people have emotional attachments to the sound of a beautiful combustion engine or what have you. That's a thing some people like. And no shame to that. I'm one of those
Right.
people
It's
too.
true.
And the good news is you're going to have choice for a while longer, regardless of whoever the president is, whatever the
Agreed.
global policy is. But yeah, in this commercial landscape, aside from we can get more and more into the cost and how that's changing too, but just, yeah, quality of life for the driver. You're talking about not having this constant droning noise. And we're not talking about a sexy V8 engine. We're talking about a very, very duty cycle rated diesel typically. And it's just so much better. And obviously for the communities, it's better in the sense of like local air quality, right? School buses, kids, everyone who's around I think benefits a lot when you have something that's less intrusive in their neighborhood.
Yeah, agree. Anecdotally, when I see the Amazon drivers driving the Rivian trucks in my neighborhood, they're definitely happier.
Yeah. And that's an example of that's like light duty, those trucks.
Right.
What do you think it is about? I know you briefly mentioned this, but what is it about light duty that makes it, yeah, I find it so interesting. You said like it's comparable right now or competitive in terms of cost. And I find that really incredible. But why do you think that is?
Well, light duty mirrors the consumer experience the most. And that's where most EV manufacturers have really placed their eggs in their basket is consumer adoption. So fleet vehicles aren't anything to ignore for sure. I recently learned that 1 in 5 vehicles on the road is a fleet vehicle, which is a phenomenal statistic. But consumers really drive the narrative. So I really believe that's why.
Yeah, and I know you're a seasoned veteran in the EV space. You've been at companies in the charging industry. You've seen a lot of this, and I have to wonder, as battery prices come down, as it's changed a lot, how I know it's looking obviously like there's these headwinds from the policy and the executive point of view of things, and yet at the same time, the market is like inevitably barreling towards cheaper and cheaper vehicles. So is
Yeah.
that something that gives you hope about what you do, or do you feel like that in some sense it's inevitable, or there'll be some slowdowns? Like, how are you feeling about the kind of trends and I guess just market adoption?
Yeah. So it's funny. I was actually reading yesterday that Nissan really believes that they will have a solid state battery out by 2028,
Okay,
which
power to them.
is I was very surprised to read that.
Yeah.
And if they can make a solid state battery happen, game changer, Max. Game changer.
Yes, and I love the idea. Toyota, other people have spoken about it, and we have a
Yeah.
lot of really bright minds working on battery IP here in the West, in the US as well. Obviously, China has been speeding ahead on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the hope that we have here is that we don't have to be speaking Mandarin to participate in the future. That's the way I like to think about it.
Oh my gosh. I think about that all the time. I fear that the US is really sliding behind in global domination from a technology standpoint, period. Not just from an EV standpoint, but just technology in general. So I think that in the next couple years, at least, we're still going to have to really rely on private investment. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that our local homegrown corporations will see the need and step up. That's one great thing I could say about WEX is that WEX does believe in the energy transition. So it's really great to work for a company that believes and sees the future in the energy transition and continues to invest in that.
Yeah, and it's about flexibility at the end of the day because we're talking about like lots of WEX's clients and the whole commercial fleet industry in general. They're commercially driven. And so they have to consider like FedEx is not going to be replacing all of their trucks with EVs tomorrow. But similarly, it would be silly for them to also say uniformly, oh, we're not going to do EVs at all. If you're
Yeah.
from a business management perspective, you have to be diversifying. And so it's interesting that, yeah, starting with light duty, it's trickling up into the higher class gross weight ratings. Do you think that with Tesla Semi, with some of the other kind of medium and heavy duty vehicles, that we're going to see maybe more, I hesitate to use the phrase, but trickle down in the sense of like large battery, large capacity vehicles? Because I know like in the mining industry, not the same as like fleet road use, mining and some of the other heavy duty construction, they're adopting EVs for their own reasons as well.
Yeah, they are. It's really interesting you bring that up because what I've noticed is an uptick in drayage electrification.
Mm,
And I just think that's so great. It's so important to to enable anything that we can to keep our ports and water clean.
yeah.
And that's just, and think of all the animals that are over there. And I know that ship electrification is, watercraft electrification is starting. It's not anywhere near where it
Yeah.
needs to be. But at least the port machines are, which is so cool. Every single sector. I got my tree trimmed the other day in an electric crane.
Love it. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
everyone in your neighborhood like legitimately appreciated that.
Yes, it was just, I was so excited to see that. Like, I had no idea the company was sending an electric crane.
Yeah. Is there a role you're finding, like for yourself or your colleagues at WEX? You have clients who not only are they coming to you because, hey, we don't want our drivers to have 14 charging apps, but also I'm sure they have questions about EVs and electrification in general. Is that some other stuff you provide to them in the sense of here's what the landscape looks like? Because obviously I know you stay up to date with it. I know your colleagues at WEX do. So what does it look like in terms of educating your clients on what this landscape is?
Absolutely. That's such a great question. WEX recently acquired, actually was about a year ago, a company called ChargeLab. And so Swatch does bespoke fleet electrification consultation. And that's something that we offer to all of our clients right now. And the Swatch people are just the best and they're so incredibly knowledgeable. And it's a really good experience for anyone that's just curious about it. We're happy to help and reach out and ask any questions.
Yeah.
And the Swatch team can hook you up with just even like a mini consultation.
Yeah, no, that's great. We'll put the link in the description to that.
Thanks.
And are you finding I remember reading 5, 6 years ago that people were skeptical when it came to return on investment, total cost of ownership, that like lithium ion batteries, we didn't know how they would fare for like
Yeah.
long duty, high mileage use cases. And we're finding, at least from what I've seen, pretty staggering results that are surprising lots of people in the labs. Obviously, there are improvements to be made in battery chemistry. And like you said, marine, heavy duty, it's still not there for every use case. And at the same time, we're finding some really interesting data. So are you noticing any trends in the sense of, oh, wow, like the mileage rate, whatever the lifetime of this vehicle is up there?
Yeah, I am. And the other thing I think it's important to note is that the manufacturers, the OEMs, have a really great battery warranty. The standard is like 8 years, 100,000 miles
Yeah,
for
and they're
motors.
not going to throw that out there lightly because the cost is on them if
No,
they're wrong on it.
exactly. And I know that personally because guess whose car is getting a new battery right now?
Oh, nice. Oh, look, how many years, how many miles in are you?
I have a Chevy Bolt 2021.
Okay.
So it's 4 years old
It,
and it only has 20,000 miles on it, which
is
is
that part of
surprising.
the recall? I know they recalled the LG batteries and the bolts.
So the initial solution was a software to detect any battery anomalies. And I had the software installed on my car 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it just basically restricted your range. I don't really ever drive, so it wasn't a big deal to me. But yeah, my car is back at GM right now.
Okay. But hey, it's not
But
coming out
it'll
of
be
your
like,
pocket.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, and it'll be like getting a brand new car.
Yes. And I
Which is
also,
crazy.
yeah. And also,
That's the craziest thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get this, and then I'm gonna have I get 100,000 miles. That's gonna be over 10 years of life for me with this car.
yeah, it's a great deal. Obviously, it's a cost either for GM, but I have to emphasize that like the Bolt, that I love that vehicle. My girlfriend has one. She loves hers. I think she has a 2021 model or what? Yeah,
Same
yeah,
twins.
they're wonderful. But that first came out in 2017, so that was
Yep.
still one of the earlier like longer range Tesla competitors. And it's funny, we've seen, yeah, Chevy Bolt. I think it was Jaguar I-Pace. Lots of vehicles that use these LG pouch cells
Yeah.
would have problems. And that's when you hear about EV battery fires. Obviously, it's a very serious issue, yet it's very rare. It happened in a few of those models. And guess what? Almost every customer who had that happen, because we're still in the early phase, got taken care of by a warranty. So is
Yep.
it inconvenient? Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's really cool that we haven't seen mass recalls on the new Ultium or Tesla vehicles, which have been out on the road for 10 plus years. When you
Yeah.
think about statistically how little issues there have been, I think it's staggering.
Yeah, agree. Tesla's had their share of recalls for sure, but it's all most of
It's
it's
most of
mitigated by
it
an
putting
over-the-air
together the
update.
car part, not the battery.
Right, or like
Yeah.
it can be solved by an over-the-air update, which
Yeah.
isn't people don't realize how easy that is. You just turn your car on,
Hmm.
plug it in, and then it receives the over-the-air update, and then you're done. The recall is complete. So it's not as big of a deal as I think people like to make it. But yeah.
Absolutely. And I do wonder, we're seeing in China, I don't know about the drayage and the fleet world there, but in consumer vehicles, they're doing battery swaps just for road
Yeah.
trips. There's stations that do that. And part of me wonders, it's one thing, right? You and I and your Bolt or my Polestar, like our batteries probably will last the lives of our vehicle, especially yours. You're getting that brand new one. But for someone who is, if you have a truck with heavy duty suspension components and stuff, and maybe the batteries start to degrade to a level in 10 years where you do think about replacing it. We might see designs where that's more modular and swappable because if when you're putting battery cells in everything, you don't necessarily need to make the battery an integral component of the vehicle. But that's an engineering decision, obviously. Different companies will take a different approach to that. But I find it fascinating because these are obviously expensive, heavy, high value components. And at the same time, if that actually might be a good thing for an asset class if you're a business because okay, it's not suitable for road use anymore, but guess what? Energy storage systems, or at the very minimum, recyclers are going to be very interested in the thousands of pounds of precious metals that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. The battery swap use case is so interesting to me, and I know that's taken off huge in China. I personally don't see it coming here. I don't
And
know that
charging's so darn fast now. Like we have to,
it
I always
is,
have
and
to
I
say,
think
yeah,
I think that the thing that's really important to remember is how far charging has come here in the last 10 years,
yeah,
as opposed to how long it took us to roll out a national infrastructure for gasoline.
hmm
We far surpassed that in 10 years. That is so fast. And we have ways to go, but you could pretty much travel anywhere in the United
yeah.
States right now with an
I
EV.
drove to DC from Colorado just a month ago, and it was fine. Like
What car did you do it in?
Polestar 2, which is not
Oh my gosh,
n
that's so
I
great.
love it. It's not ideal because I have the like old dual motor version. I love it.
Yeah.
It's fast, but I can't say it's efficient. And yet, guess what? It was not the end of the world. Every whatever over 2 or 3 days of driving, 10 hours, 2 hours of my day was charging. But that just means that I'm spending less time with my butt in the seat and can walk around. And the 15-minute stops every 2 hours, that's livable. If you have Porsche Taycan money, or you see the vehicles that have these like higher silicone anode insane charging, that's not even a going concern. My old
It's not.
employer at out of spec, they would, I'm not sure what his speeds were or whether I should disclose them, but in a Porsche Taycan going cross country, the delta between a gas car, which he benchmarked at the same time with another driver, was 2 hours going
Oh my
cross country,
gosh.
which is 2 hours for a 40-hour trip.
That's negligible.
It's negligible, like honestly.
Wow.
And so it is fascinating too. You've seen the charging industry obviously blossom and grow so much. It's both the cars, the batteries, but it's the infrastructure component getting so
Yeah.
much better. So I have to ask, like, for a fleet, for a commercial person, the dream for them is not having to go to a depot where they're sharing it at a Walmart parking lot. It's going to be like a charging hub that's dedicated, right, for
Yeah.
them. And are we seeing some of those actually get built out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's so many companies that are dedicated to that too, which is really cool. We have the Terawatts, the Electradas. Prologis right now is doing a really great job of building out private infrastructure. Yeah. So a lot of the companies that we are involved with are doing private sites
That's
because it just suits their use case the best.
That's awesome. The other thing is we've talked so much about the commercial and the private sector, and we're market-driven folks here, so I'm a big fan of that. But at the same time, especially even with federal headwinds, we're seeing state and local governments consider EV fleets very seriously,
Oh yeah.
both for cost reasons, honestly, but also just we've mentioned this, right? Air quality, it's better in the community, regardless of your politics. It just
Yeah.
is. That's a fact. And lots of communities are adopting that. Is that something that you're also like noticing on your end?
We are. Yes, definitely. I think that we are actually seeing it now more on a more municipal level.
Yeah, so like in the sense of like cities installing chargers and saying, okay, now our police force or whatever is going to have
Yep.
Mach-E's, stuff like that. Yeah,
Yep. So I live in Baltimore City and I actually saw a municipal Ford Lightning the other day. I
love
had no
that.
idea that Baltimore City had bought Lightnings for some of their operational people. I think that's great. I know that we've got Mach-E's, but just to even see a Lightning was so cool.
I know, and I've spoken to some, I believe, power utility employees, but people driving Lightnings for work, and they love it because obviously it's a lower cost for the company, but on their end, it's fun to drive, and the Pro Power on board, those features and being
Oh
able
my
to
gosh.
plug in stuff, that is
Let me
really
tell
cool.
you
You're a
about that Pro
contractor?
Power on board. Yeah, my husband.
Yeah.
My husband has his own business and he bought a Ford Lightning for his business vehicle. And we have the Lariat with the 9 kilowatts of Pro Power on
Oh,
board.
nice.
He has literally run press conferences off of that truck.
That's so cool. And if you guys have a power outage at home, you can power your house with it.
I know. It
yeah.
is the coolest. We constantly talk about how amazing that truck is and how we can't imagine trading it in for anything else because there's really nothing else that meets our needs and our use case, even in our personal life. So we ride motorcycles and we like to tow things or bikes, or we'll load up a bike in the back of the truck and take that to the track or climb the mountains sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, that truck has been, I can't believe how much we needed that truck. We knew we needed it and we didn't understand how much we needed it until we actually had it. And we used the full functionality of that truck.
That's awesome. Were you or
almost
your
daily.
husband pickup owners before? Was this like your first truck?
No, this is our first truck.
Nice. That's the way to do it. I'm sure you're appreciating the cost of ownership on that too.
Oh my gosh.
If you see the lease rates on them, it's crazy. But also just the fact that assuming you guys have a home charger, it's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've been EV drivers for almost 10 years.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's awesome to see what Ford has done. And I hope, honestly, more. I think we're seeing GM start to do this too, take the bidirectional charging seriously, because that is a use case that I think everyone can appreciate. And you want to talk about the image of EVs, right? You think about the idea of a prepper or someone who wants to really prepare their home for anything and be off grid. And that maybe that's a more conservative idea in the culture. Guess what? EVs are really good at that.
Yeah, they really are.
And I have to ask, the electric motorcycles, that sounds fun. How do you like that?
Max, it's the best.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it's the best. It's pretty much my favorite thing to talk about. Yeah, I absolutely love electric motorcycles. I'm a newer motorcycle rider. My husband's been riding his entire life, and he was the one that he brought the first Zero into our home and was like, "You are going to love this bike." And I knew that I wanted to ride, but I don't know. I got my license and I had a gas bike and I didn't like riding it because I only had electric cars and I wanted an electric motorcycle, but I didn't feel like as a newer rider I could justify the expense of an electric motorcycle because they are more expensive than a gas bike. And so motorcycles are one place where we have not reached parity whatsoever, range or price.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing, which is crazy because you look at countries like India and you have two-wheel adoption is through the roof because it makes the most sense there. But in the States, it hasn't really taken off. And it's funny because motorcycle people, it's met with a lot of opposition. They are really offended. And you talk about people being emotionally connected to that sound. That is an entire subset of people that are deeply emotionally connected to the sound. Whereas I'm one of those people I do not care for that sound. And I actually prefer to ride through the woods in complete silence.
It's a feature because I'm sure your neighbors aren't mad at you because you have that.
Well, we do have gas bikes too.
Okay, but not for driving the EV powertrain.
So everybody prefers the electric cars and the bikes because they're silent.
Yeah.
So I definitely have gotten some dirty looks from my neighbors in the gas bikes before. Because some of our gas bikes are very loud. And oh my gosh, when I bought my track bike and I had a full exhaust installed on it, it was so loud I didn't even want to ride it. And I have custom earplugs. And
that's pack it on the Lightning and go to the track kind of machine right there.
It was horrible. I was like, I don't even like this. I had to put a baffle to install a baffle in the exhaust because it's not fun.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about the noise just being a mental component of enjoying what you're doing. And that, for me personally, huge.
Yeah, I do wonder, that's obviously bikes are an area where the weight is super sensitive and obviously the batteries do make them heavier. At the same time, I don't hear about any performance issues in the sense of the acceleration. It's plenty fast, but I'm sure there are, like you said, the cost isn't comparable yet. The range isn't comparable. So those are some interesting edge cases where I think I love the point you brought up in India and lots of countries where urban density necessitates two-wheel transportation. Yeah. That's a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There are some that are lightweight, they're the worst, but they don't go very far. It's okay. Like, most of them will get you where you need to go. I can ride roughly 60 to 90 minutes on my 7.2 kilowatt S and be okay.
Yeah.
Before I need to charge it, that's plenty of time. Not for a full day of riding, because then I would have to plan 30 to 40 minute stops throughout the day. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like a 5-minute refuel.
Yeah. That's an interesting area where I do feel like I've seen a lot of folks have fun on e-bikes, like e-mountain bikes and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a use case where I think it's still a fun day out. And then for you, I'm 60, 90 minutes on a zero. That's a fun day, right? You're not necessarily going to be going from Maryland to Ohio, and you don't need to. But
I would take a gas bike for that.
There you go. Yeah, if you want to.
I would still take a gas bike. But now if it was something I needed to drive, I would have no problem driving one of my cars.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. And on the bike point, I love Ewan McGregor series. He's done a bunch of the tracks.
Long Way Up.
Long Way Up. They had the live wires, very early tech.
The
you can
one.
See. Yeah, obviously, I know in the electric motorcycle community, things are heated. Some people don't think that's necessarily the best bike, but they went through South America on those bikes. Now, was it painless? No, but I think I love seeing people on the frontier pushing the limits. And yeah, that just fun little series recommendation for people. And I'm sure it doesn't have to be you, because if I need to drive cross country right now, is it marginally more convenient in a gas car? Yes, but barely. And on a bike or towing, yeah, it's still more convenient with diesel. But I think we're seeing more and more of these kind of edge cases become more and more edge cases. Not to say they don't exist, but it's just fascinating. I'm sure it is for you too, right? Being in this industry, it's gone so many places in the last 15 plus years.
It has, and I'm excited to see where it keeps going. I don't think it's not going away. I think that's the most important thing to note, is it's definitely not going away. We're going to continue to see adoption, and we're going to continue to see growth.
Absolutely. So let's hopefully build those batteries here. Thank you so much, Libby, for coming on and talking commercial fleets, WEX. Any other things you want to bring up before we close?
Thank you so much for having me, Max. I really appreciate it. This was super fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is all for this week on Directly Current. Thank you so much to Libby for joining us, and I'm very excited for our next guest again in 2 weeks. So follow and subscribe on all the platforms we're on: YouTube, your podcast app of choice, all of them. And check out the work that we do at the American EV Jobs Alliance, link in the description, as well as, of course, a link to Libby's info if you want to follow what she's doing or get in touch with the fine folks at WEX. Again, I'm Max Patten, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks for the next episode of Directly Current.